Audi and BMW pretty much own the sport luxury SUV market. If you want to go fast, feel fancy, and sit high up off the ground, you look to those two automakers. But that hasn't stopped Acura from trying to make inroads into the segment with the new RDX. The midsize SUV from Acura starts at $37,000 for the front-wheel drive version. Now, it got an aggressive redesign and updated tech for model year 2019. It's sportier, it's quicker, and it has an intriguing way for drivers to interact with the infotainment system. Oh, also, it's a few grand cheaper than the Audi Q5 and the BMW X3. On the tech front, the money saved doesn't diminish what you can do. The 10.2-inch display isn't a touchscreen, a huge departure from where the rest of the automotive world is right now. Instead, the infotainment system is controlled by Acura's true touchpad. The good news is that the touchpad is one-to-one positioning with the display. So if my finger is up here in the upper left-hand corner, that's where I'm selecting in the infotainment system. If it's in the middle, that's where I'm selecting. If I'm in the bottom right-hand corner, that's where I'm selecting. It doesn't work like the touchpad on your computer or Lexus's infotainment system where I have to sort of drag around to get where I need to go. It's actually absolute positioning. At first, it's a bit odd if you're not used to it. The system requires a bit more pressure to select items than I expected. But after a few days, I was tapping and launching features without looking down, and within a week, I was doing the same thing without looking at the display thanks to muscle memory, which was helped by this hand rest. To the right of the main touchpad is a secondary pad for the items that take up the right-hand side of the screen. It works the same way as the main touchpad. But even after you get used to everything, the system can be finicky. For example, when you're trying to swipe left and right between the different screens, it doesn't always work as expected, which, well, kind of sucks. Also, if you're using Apple's CarPlay, it doesn't support absolute positioning, so you end up using it like you would your laptop's touchpad, which isn't ideal. The driving tech is more predictable. The adaptive cruise control does a great job keeping pace with the rest of traffic, and when vehicles pull out in front of it, it's actually smooth slowing down. It doesn't stomp on the brakes. So while the design of the car may be aggressive, the driving tech is not, which is good news. Lane keep assist, on the other hand, could do with more work. On a few occasions, the system just wouldn't turn on, even though the car would warn you if you left your lane. For instance, right now, it doesn't see the lane markings. The lines on the road were clearly marked, and there was plenty of contrast between the paint and asphalt. When it did work, it held steady on straightaways and freeway corners that were about medium sharp. If Acura wants to take on BMW and Audi, this feature will need some fine-tuning. The unassisted driving is actually sportier than I expected. The 2-liter VTEC turbocharged 4-cylinder engine puts out 272 horsepower and 280 foot-pounds of torque. And it also has this sort of satisfying little growl when you stomp on the accelerator, which is probably helped by the fact that some of the engine noise is piped in through the speakers. To put all that power to the ground, Acura dropped off the A-spec version of the RDX. Now, it has super handling all-wheel drive, which that's sort of a ridiculous name. But who doesn't want super handling? It's a $2,000 option, but worth it for increased traction around corners and in inclement weather. All those tires spinning at once enhance the RDX's cornering, while the suspension does an admirable job smoothing out many of the road's imperfections. It handles corners well for its size, with less body roll than expected. My biggest quibble behind the wheel is the 10-speed automatic transmission, which at low and medium speeds in regular mode, it aggressively shifts between gears, like far more than I would like. To kind of fix that, I just put the car in sport mode all the time, and when I was in the mountains, I actually used the paddle shifters. On the actual steering wheel is almost an overabundance of features. Fortunately, after a few minutes, it all makes sense. In fact, the rest of the cabin is like that, where everything's clearly labeled and it's easy to understand. The best label, though, is this giant dynamic mode selector. It's this big silver twisty thing that I kind of want to turn up all the way to 11. The rest of the cabin is less in your face. The seats are a comfortable affair, both in front and back, and the rear cargo area holds 31.1 cubic feet of your stuff. The interior isn't as nice as, say, an Audi, but you are paying less. That's sort of the deal with the RDX. It's gunning for SUVs with a higher price tag, and in most cases, it meets them. But in others, well, it's pretty clear that you're trying to save some cash, which isn't necessarily bad. If you're getting the features that you want and you're paying less money, that's called value. And who doesn't love a good deal that looks like this?